I rise today in support of my amendment, which prohibits the implementation and enforcement of the EPA's final rule entitled Clean Water Act Section 401 Water Quality Certification Improvement Rule. The U.S. EPA published in the Federal Register its revised Clean Water Act Section 401 certification rule on September 27th of this year. This proposal was made in direct response to the 2021 Biden executive order that directed agencies to tackle the so-called, quote, climate crisis. This rule applies to 401 certifications, which are water quality certifications issued by state or tribal authorities that verify compliance with water quality requirements. The CWA allows states a great deal of discretion in reviewing and conditioning 401 certifications to ensure compliance with the CWA and state surface water quality standards. This final rule returns to the broader scope of review that was in place prior to the 2020 rule and requires states and tribes to evaluate the water quality-related impacts from an entire activity as a whole, including construction and operation, rather than doing what it should, which is solely focusing on the aspect of the activity directly authorized by a given federal license or permit. The final rule also includes a broad definition of the term neighboring jurisdiction, which means that it can include any jurisdiction other than the one in which the discharge originates. The EPA's proposed rule is too broad, is contrary to the clear intent of Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, and is outside of the EPA's authority and jurisdiction. My amendment would prohibit the implementation of this wrong-headed rule, and I urge my colleagues to support my amendment. And with that, I reserve.
The gentlewoman from Wyoming reserves. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from Minnesota seek recognition?
I rise to oppose this amendment.
The gentlewoman is recognized.
Thank you. This is another policy rider designed to block the EPA from doing its work to protect our air, our water, public health. I know my constituents, they look to me to make good decisions because they want to have clean water to drink, to cook, to bathe in. And the EPA, working alongside of the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, ensures that we have the best water quality standards around. So, Madam Chair, on behalf of the 4th District of Minnesota, I oppose this amendment. I yield back my time.
Gentlewoman yields. The gentlewoman from Wyoming.
We all want clean water. This rule has nothing to do with that. This has to do with the EPA controlling and dictating matters that they have no business being involved with. This proposal will put many pending projects at risk, including mining projects, and will force the courts to make the final determinations with regard to such projects by interpreting and applying two extremely vague and ambiguous provisions included in the new rule. This situation will ultimately result in a significant loss of investment in mining projects throughout the country, and it will cause greater regulatory uncertainty and inefficiency. My amendment will block the EPA from implementing this wrong-headed rule, and I urge my colleagues to vote in favor of it. Not only does this rule broaden reviews and jurisdiction for permit requirements, but it substantially expands the jurisdiction of states to regulate even those waters that are not considered navigable waters under of the United States as required by the Clean Water Act. The Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality had this to say about the rule. Quote, "We are deeply concerned with EPA's blatant claims in the preamble of the rule to use the Section 401 certification process as a mechanism to expand federal jurisdiction into waters that are not waters of the United States." End quote. Wyoming DEQ also highlighted the burdens that would be imposed on entities due to broadening the scope of activities measured under this certification to, quote, "include conditions unrelated or only speculative related to water quality." And I will say it again, we all want clean water. This rule has nothing to do with that. EPA's new interpretation of Section 401 and its efforts to broaden states' authority over water bodies and features that are outside of the jurisdiction of the Clean Water Act must be stopped. We are fed up with the EPA using the Clean Water Act as part of its efforts to implement this administration's radical environmental agenda and land grab. My amendment is designed to stop this nonsense, to block the EPA's misinterpretation and application of Section 401 of the Clean Water Act and to force the EPA to follow the law. I urge my colleagues to adopt it, and with that, I yield back.
The gentlewoman from Wyoming yields. The question is on the amendment offered by the gentlewoman from Wyoming. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. In the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to.